Hi, kitty cats. The Dunning-Kruger Effect is absolutely real, and it affects you whether you know it or not. The trick is actually knowing when it begins to affect you. Now, luckily, we can learn when we begin to climb the proverbial Mount Stupid and pull back before we make that foolish social media post. Or worse, run for office as the king of Mount Stupid. So today, let's talk about how to develop the most powerful tool you have to improve yourself, which is metacognition, or the ability to think about the quality of your own thoughts. I gotta clear my throat. So first of all, let me do my opening stuff here. I'm Dr. Amethysta Herrick. I am both a scientist and a content creator. I discuss identity and gender using the scientific method. And maybe you're going, well, how did the Dunning-Kruger effect get in here? We'll get there. You can find out much more information about me and the work that I do at my website, which you'll find down below. That is purplepawclan.com. You can find the social media networks that I'm on. You can read the articles that I've written. You can listen to and even watch the podcasts I recorded with very interesting people. There is a page there so you can join the Discord server that we have. And you can be part of the solution by being part of the discussion. And finally, if you have any issues with identity and gender yourself, you can find information about the hypnotherapy work that I do to help people just like that. So if you'd like to support my work, you can get a subscription at the website, purplepawclan.com, for as little as $5 a month. You can also sign up for the free newsletter. It publishes about every 2 weeks. It's really the dark moon and the full moon, which means you'll get one today. Blessings of the full moon, everybody. And you can follow me on social media. Liking and sharing all of the stuff that I do is great support, and I thank you for it. And finally, if you have your own original work in identity or gender, please email me at the contact page below, or at the website below. I love to publish other people's work. And so once again, purplepawclan.com. Now we can move on. Let me see who's here today. Let me see. We've got, so I know I saw Angela, and I've got Genevieve. Hello, Margie. Good to see that you're here. Let's see. We're going to learn, so, I don't know. Unenlightened muffins. I'm not sure. I don't know. There's something with 3.14. We're going to learn the Dunning-Kruger effect. This is basically like school on YouTube. It is. Yeah, that's all that I do. Let me see. The Dunning... Oh, gosh. Actually, so I wish I could figure out what this was. UEN Delig Muffins. I'm seeing muffins. I'm sorry. So Muffin says... Oh, let me pop this up. Muffin says the Dunning-Kruger effect actually changed their way of thinking a lot in a healthy way, so hopes that this will help others too. So thank you so much. Oh, and hey, Ari. Ari is here too. And Charlotte, hello. There you go. Oh, come on. Charlotte's already saying she's not smart, let alone intelligent. If you're... Ooh, here's a good question. If you're thinking about metacognition, is that metacognition? I think so. I gotta turn off my... I need to turn off my notifications there. So let me see, what else do we have? Ari... Oh, Erica. Hello, Erica. Good to see you, too. Oh, my gosh. And Miss Chief, how are you doing? All right, let me go ahead and get moving here. I want to talk about, first of all, just poor performance. I did a live stream. It was a couple of weeks ago, and I don't recall. But I talked about the education gap between boys and girls. We have boys being left behind starting as early as 8 years old. That's pretty crazy. We've talked a lot about getting feedback and how feedback is critical for being able to assess how well you're performing. Now, I pointed out, at least in that stream, that all the training that boys get in their lives as a result of living in a white patriarchy teaches them that they are naturally superior. And as a result, they fail to receive adequate feedback on their performance. Now, if you look around, right, maybe you're going to be surprised by this, but if you look around, you can see people all over talking while actually knowing not that much. It's not just white men, although ultimately their ignorance ends up costing society the most, but you can see this all over social media. You can see it all over the streaming platforms that I'm on right now. When each of us has a platform that's dedicated specifically, like to our ramblings, just our ramblings, we begin to believe that people agree with us because we're right. And those likes and shares that I even asked you to do, they only reinforce that. But that does not mean at all that we are authorities on the things that we discuss. Again, it takes accurate feedback to be able to improve whatever it is you're doing. Here's a spoiler alert here, social media. That's not the place to get accurate feedback. So with that feedback, one of the things that Kruger and Dunning noticed is that there are people, it's typically expressed, first of all, it's typically expressed like this. The people who know the least are the most confident in their ability. It's not exactly what Kruger and Dunning wrote about 26 years ago. It was 1999. So today what we're going to do is talk about one more way that you can fail to receive feedback. That's the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's the 4-point, and I'll talk about the 4 points that they come up with that support it, and why we see this Dunning-Kruger effect in some domains, but not others. And then finally, how metacognition ends up being your biggest ally in improving your performance. And if we all feel like it after realizing we need to step off a Mount Stupid, we can go back to Super Lesbian Animal RPG. I'm going to tell you, I have no idea what we're doing any longer. It's going to take some figuring out. So let's see. Let me see what we got here. So we're listening to heavy meta. First of all, that's for sure. We're just a bunch of meta heads. Thank you, everybody. So Muffin's here. I don't know. Muffin says he's a male, so thank you for giving me some pronouns too. But if he got let out in the wild, he would be less superior than a squirrel. Well, you know, it's an interesting interesting point. Maybe we'll return to it. Okay, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Just in general, the Dunning-Kruger effect. In 1999, Kruger and Dunning wrote this paper. It's not really about confidence. The basic premise of the paper is that lack of competence in a domain is related to the ability to judge competence in that domain. That's kind of complicated sounding. The point is that if you don't know that much about something, if you don't know that much about a domain, you may not be able to spot what competence should look like. I'm saying may. It doesn't always happen. But you may not be able to spot what competence should look like. And if you're asked to evaluate how competent you are, specifically how well you just did in a particular performance, you can't do it. And so these people, you know, if you're not competent, these people tend to overestimate their performance. Here's a simple example. If you're asked to write a sentence, and they say, we want you to write a sentence using perfect grammar, you have to have knowledge about what makes a grammatical sentence. If you do not have that knowledge, but you try to write a grammatical sentence, if you asked whether you succeed, your ability to evaluate yourself isn't very good. Ultimately, Dunning and Kruger said that leads to four patterns of behavior. This is most of the entire paper that Dunning and Kruger had. Oh, is that not working? I think I got something that's not working. Oh, maybe it is. I don't know. The real points that Dunning and Kruger had are that, first, lack of competence, as I just mentioned, results in grossly overestimating your ability and your performance. That inability to estimate your performance actually results in the inability to recognize competence, period, whether that's your competence or somebody else's. If you are unable to recognize competence, it results in far less ability to improve your own competence, which, when you get to that point, learning to recognize competence frequently just means becoming competent yourself. I don't know how much I want to unpack any of these. The point is that when you aren't competent at something, it's very difficult for you to evaluate yourself. And so all four of these patterns of behavior come down to one factor, and that's it. And it's metacognition. Metacognition, if you just break that down into pieces, It means the ability to evaluate your own thought. So it's the ability to consider the quality of your thought. Now maybe you're going, that's not really immediately obvious how that plays into improvement. The quick story here is that it plays into your ability to receive feedback on performance. That's what metacognition is all about. You cannot receive feedback about a performance unless you're able to evaluate your performance and evaluate your performance accurately. And so this is a lot of what the Dunning-Kruger effect is. Let me check some comments here. Okay, let me see. I think this is true. I think we need to rename social media anti-social media. Because there's no doubt, there's nobody's friends on that, right? There's really no social aspect to that. It's mostly yelling at each other. You're an idiot. That's a good point. Let's go into metacognition, and especially how it relates to performance. When we ask the question, just what is metacognition? I mentioned this is the ability to evaluate your own thoughts. It's the ability to evaluate your performance intellectually. Now, if you lack metacognition, this ability to evaluate your own thought, you can't evaluate. This is the best part. The reason why the Dunning-Kruger effect exists is because if you lack metacognition, you cannot evaluate your performance, which naturally means you assume you did well. Because after all, you did it. None of us is going to choose to do something poorly, right? And if there's a cognitive dissonance there, if you didn't choose to do something poorly, you must have done it pretty well. I mean, it's actually, makes a lot of sense right there. It just comes down to if you can't evaluate your performance, you have no way of figuring out how you really did. Now, unfortunately, or fortunately, we can only improve by being able to evaluate our performance. We need to have a sort, alternatively, you could have somebody else who evaluates your performance, but we need a source of evaluation that we can trust, whether that's us or whether that's something else, objective information, a coach, whatever. But we've got to have a source of evaluation we can trust. But it also means being able to receive that feedback. So metacognition is all about understanding the feedback. And what's crazy is that includes before you even start doing the action, whatever it is you're going to do, before you start doing it. Because if you don't, if you don't understand, if you start trying to do something and you've already decided it's going to be great. I mean, we have a lot of people here in politics who do that. Anything I do must be great. They're by nature not going to accept that they may have done something wrong. So an interesting point is that metacognition applies to all evaluation of performance. This isn't just about being able to look at yourself and go, was my performance any good? It applies to everybody else. If you're unable to evaluate your own performance, you cannot at all evaluate somebody else's. So think about this in reality. I'm going to take a quick check on something. Okay. So think about this in reality. If you hear some politician say a statement, I'm not saying that there's a lot of this going on right now, except there's a whole lot of this going on right now. If you hear a politician saying some statement, I don't know, call it an executive order that redefines sex outside the bounds of actual molecular biology. If you are unable to evaluate that statement, you really can't evaluate the politician. You can't evaluate whether you're competent either. And so maybe you're going to end up on social media that entirely agrees with the politician. And the worst thing is that even if you entirely agree, you can still be inaccurate. You can still look like a fool to anyone who can evaluate the statements that are made. But without the competence, without the metacognition, you end up never knowing how foolish you look. You can't learn from people who actually are competent. You lack the ability to receive that feedback, and here you are, you've now put on your crampons and you got your pick, whatever it takes, right? You've begun to scale Mount Stupid, and that might be pretty high. Now, an interesting little tidbit here. It works, the Dunning-Kruger effect actually goes a little bit backward as well. Kruger and Dunning actually predicted that those who are competent will fall into a similar metacognitive trap because they are competent, right? Because if you're going to choose to do something, you're probably going to choose to do it well. Because they are competent, people who are competent, they tend to believe everybody else is competent. Because if you have the ability to understand something, everybody must, right? As I was reading this paper, I was like, oh my gosh, I totally do this. I've done this. Maybe I should say I've done this. When I first started making content, especially when I was streaming, like I assumed everybody wanted to learn. Everybody who was going to come to a stream and make a comment was there in good faith, right? If they wanted to learn, then certainly they'd know about their lack of knowledge, right? That's why they're here. So I gave a lot of people the benefit of the doubt. Maybe you remember, I mean, it's been not quite a year now. It's been about 9 months, I guess. That hit me pretty hard. What I did not recognize, and this was part of the studies that Dunning and Kruger did, what I didn't recognize was the level of competence in some of the people who commented. What I didn't recognize was that my definition of basic biology, let me put that in quotation fingers, my definition of basic biology came from an upper division undergraduate university course. Their definition of basic biology came from Marjorie Taylor Greene. That's very different. It's a spoiler alert, by the way. Marjorie Taylor Greene did not get a degree in molecular biology. Now, here's an interesting thing. The Dunning-Kruger effect does not apply equally to all domains of performance. There are particular fields where it's more competent. So if we think about domains, just, because obviously we manage not to be incompetent our whole lives, right? So this is in some domains of performance, the Dunning-Kruger effect is more common. And that way we can actually get out of our incompetence. But let me see what we have here. So Angela says, because of her lack of confidence in her ability, she often put herself down. Right. So she says, for example, she didn't believe she danced as a woman until she asked some friends who knew, and they said, yeah, you're dancing like a woman. I think that's an interesting aspect of what the Dunning-Kruger effect implies. If you are competent in a domain, if you do have knowledge in a domain, oftentimes you assume you don't, because you assume that everybody is at your level. And if you're at a level where you go, I'm about, more or less kind of okay, good, it's not the same as really being confident about it. So that's perfect. Thank you so much, Angela. That's a good point. Ari says, confidence has been a decades-long journey for me from trauma despite her profession. Oh, that's a bummer. Her profession. That's a bummer. Yeah, I think so. Ultimately what we're looking at here, confidence and metacognition are two different aspects of sort of the same coin, a little bit. There's trying to figure out how much I want to go into this. But they're similar, right? Your confidence increases the more you are aware that you are competent. Of course, if you are, so this relationship, usually the Dunning-Kruger effect relates to confidence because people go, well, if you know you're competent, that implies confidence. But I don't think it does. Because when I do these streams, right, I mean, objectively, I'm trying to say this, and you can see I'm struggling with it. Objectively speaking, I have a significant amount of knowledge. God, that was so tough to say. It was tough to say because I never want to call myself like an authority on something. It's really interesting. I had a conversation with somebody whom I highly respect on Friday, and she said the same. She doesn't want to call herself an authority on things. What she is somebody who may know a little bit more than others. Give me 1 second to cough here. I still have this crazy throat thing going on. I'm telling you, someday it'll go away. In any event, she doesn't want to call herself an authority because all she does is know more than other people. She has more experience than other people. Maybe I'll get past this. And I think that happens when you typically once you get more, I don't want to say education, more knowledge. Because I think you see this with people in martial arts and stuff too, where they're just like, yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I mean, I know what I'm doing, but there's so much more to know. And I think a lot of where Dunning-Kruger comes in, and especially when we're looking at confidence here, so sorry, Ari, for popping you up for all this long, where Dunning-Kruger comes in when it comes to confidence is that if you know that a field is huge, you almost never are going to go, yeah, I know everything. And so this actually feeds really nicely into domains. So thank you, Ari. Oh, wait a minute. I just realized what this says. I don't know. MTG said that she has had no surgery. I don't know if lip filler counts there, but that's... I mean, I think she's, I don't know. It's a weird redemption arc, right? You see this redemption arc, you're like, oh my gosh, maybe she really regrets. And then, like, just as she's walking out the door, she's like, oh, hang on, I got one more final fuck you to everybody in the gender diverse community. How about 2 of them? Okay, 2 of them. And then you're like, ugh, I really, really wanted to give you this redemption arc. I really did. So, Marjorie, if you're out there, come on. Come on. I wonder if she's watching. Maybe she's watching. So Muffins brings up, this is a great, so Socrates Johnson, right, from Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Socrates said once that all I know is that I know nothing. The idea being that we could never know everything in the universe. And here we go, this is exactly it. Margie says the more you know, the less you know. I once had somebody go, wow, you must be, Ph.D. in chemistry. You must be an expert in chemistry. And I was like, oh, I know a whole lot about the field that I studied. I know a decent amount about semiconductor electrochemistry. Do you know how often that comes up at parties? It ain't often, all right? I'm just going to just throw that out there. But it gave me understanding that there is so much more to chemistry. So that's an excellent point. Angela, I'm going to get your comment in a sec. I want to talk about domains of performance. Domains of performance. In short, not all performance is created equal. There are, now not only am I coughing, I think all I need to do is vomit, and I will have done every single bit on camera here for you. Not all performance is created equal. There are domains in which competence implies having knowledge or wisdom. In other words, you don't acquire competence unless you acquire the knowledge or the wisdom. Usually we're talking about like scientific fields, right? Knowing about, say, biology implies competence in the field of biology. And if you don't know about biology, anything about biology, it implies lack of competence in biology. But there are others. Ari brings up cybersecurity. I'm going to pop that up because actually, this is something I'm going to get there in a moment. But history is another one. Yeah, if you haven't read books on Sumerian political elections, you're not competent in it. Like this is true. Oftentimes, engineering fields, cybersecurity, I think, is a good one. Like if you don't know the math necessary to design a suspension bridge, lacking that implies lack of competence. And so these are domains in which competence comes from acquiring knowledge or wisdom. But there are domains in which knowledge or wisdom does not bring competence. For instance, sports. Coaches may know a lot about the rules of the game, but they may be really terrible players. Really awful players. In fact, Kruger and Dunning, in their paper, it's from 1999. Okay, so like bear with me for a second, but Kruger and Dunning said you may know all of the rules of basketball backward and forward, but you're probably not going to be like Michael Jordan, in like a game of horse. Was that it? Wasn't it called horse? I can't think of what it was. Anyway, so sports is one domain where knowledge or wisdom may not bring competence, doesn't have to be associated with competence. Something like art and music, you may know nothing about the history of an artistic medium. You may even know very little about musical theory, and it might make no difference. I could point to somebody like Stevie Ray Vaughan who would say over and over, I don't know anything about what I'm doing, it just happens to work. So those are domains. The domain in which you're trying to perform makes a difference. And there's one more aspect of metacognition at play. Hang on, I've got... See, there you go. Margie says she talks about gallium arsenide at every party. I did not work with gallium arsenide. I worked with, I said semiconductor electrochemistry. Probably should have said compound semiconductor electrochemistry. I worked primarily with cadmium sulfide, a little bit with cadmium telluride, and then I did a bunch with zinc oxide as well. So no gallium arsenide, but I think we had somebody in the lab who was doing gallium arsenide. And this is why Margie attends few parties. I think what's going to happen, Margie, is that we're just going to need to have like a party on our own, and the two of us can talk about compound semiconductors, and the rest of the people, I guess, will leave. That's probably true. All right, here we go. So there's one more aspect. So how does, if performance in a domain is dependent on the domain, how is it that the Dunning-Kruger effect actually, works at all? There's one more aspect of metacognition at play, and that is the reasonable expectation. A reasonable expectation that you might be competent. This is very much metacognitive, right? You have this metacognition. You are evaluating whether you should be competent, right? This is metacognition. Now, the thing is, typically, if you don't need specifically knowledge or wisdom, if knowledge or wisdom does not define competence, let's say sports or art or music, generally you have people that go, well, it's just natural talent. Yeah, it's if you don't have the natural talent, you can't do it. There's nobody will be able to throw a basketball other than Michael Jordan. He's got natural talent. That's it. It is very typical, and actually I had a conversation with Jasmine Vine about this recently. It's very typical to diminish the effect that practice can play in competence. That people will go, well, it doesn't make a difference how much I choose to practice. I will never achieve competence, and that's in part because they're incompetent. They have a lack of competence and cannot evaluate their competence. So does this Dunning-Kruger effect come into effect? Can you say that? Do we experience the Dunning-Kruger effect in domains not based in knowledge or wisdom? Sure. But usually it's because you don't have a mechanism for evaluating your performance. If you don't have like an objective instrument to measure performance, I don't know who talks like that. Like a tape measure. What else do you have? A stopwatch, things like this. If you don't have objective instruments, if you don't have objective metrics, you don't know the level of your competence. Alternatively, if you don't have an external person who can evaluate the performance and demonstrate where you're lacking competence. So in art and music, oftentimes you'll see the Dunning-Kruger effect manifest because you just don't have the instrumentation. You don't have the ability to evaluate your performance, and a lot of that is technical. A lot of that is either finding the right person or finding the right ways to measure something. And just as an aside, I'll recommend Jasmine if you're looking for vocal feminization. There you go, quick plug for you, Jasmine. When you look at a domain in which competence is measured by the level of knowledge or wisdom that you have, this is absolutely where the Dunning-Kruger effect is likely to be prevalent. But not always. So you remember I mentioned some engineering fields. If you're asked to evaluate your competence in a really complicated domain, like think of some domain in which you have to be obviously highly trained, just drop something in the comments. I don't even know. You know, surgery, much of like engineering. Like if somebody goes, oh yeah, we've got to make the suspension bridge, you know, abstract math. I'm not even I'm not even really sure. Most of us are capable. When you look at something and you go, I have no idea what that even means. Most of us are believe that we don't have a reasonable expectation of competence. See, so this is where we're coming back to it. So this reasonable expectation, it's those domains in which we believe we could have that thermodynamics. There you go. Thermodynamics is a great one. It's the domains in which we believe we could have some reasonable expectation of competence that'll get you. Biology is an predictive network security. Holy cats. I don't even know what that means. Do you see? If you don't know what it means, right there you go. Transform calculus. The thing is, we call them PDQs, right? Partial differential equations. I called them PDQs. I don't know. Anyway, I'm assuming that's what that was, but oh, Angela's got a great point. Analysis if compound interest is correctly calculated. Yeah, that's ugly. Anyway, it's the domains in which we believe we could have a reasonable expectation of competence that really get us. Like biology. Almost all of us end up taking a biology class in high school. Chemistry, that's another one. You know, it's a little bit further down. Psychology, a lot of people go, it's crap anyway, right? I know all kinds of things about psychology. I'm certainly competent to discuss psychology. Now, when you have this reasonable expectation of competence in a field that maybe you don't, you are absolutely subject to the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, I find it ironic, really, when it comes down to it, because there's a really simple test to determine whether you're competent in a subject. Go get a university textbook in the field. And I'm not kidding. University textbook. Right? I mean, it's one thing to like find a high school textbook. And I'm not dumping on people who didn't go to college. I'm saying if you are capable of reading a college textbook in the field, a university textbook, if you get it, if you can expand on it, you're competent. If you read a university textbook, and it could be freshman level university textbook, and you don't get it, you're not competent. It's a very simple test. You don't need complicated instrumentation. You don't need somebody to swoop in and go, let me help you figure out if you are competent at something. Read a college textbook, and if you don't get it, you're not competent. I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm saying it to say that it's a really simple test. Whether you're good at art or music or something, that's a much more difficult test. Knowledge, when competence is defined by knowledge or wisdom, test if you have knowledge or wisdom, you'll know. Done. All right, so I do want to talk about how can we spot this? How can we spot when we're in danger of the Dunning-Kruger effect? Ultimately, it comes down to developing metacognition, and that's my last topic. Let me run through a few of these comments here. First, I want to go back to, here we go. I like what Angela says. So Angela says confidence can hide an ability. For example, she's now able to pass as a woman because she's confident in the way she presents herself. So that's a fascinating tidbit. So there's a book I'm reading right now about about stigma, right? I mean, I'll just come out and I'll just say that much. Stigma oftentimes is something that destroys our confidence. And one of the things the author brings up is the ability to conceal what he calls discreditable characteristics. So in this case, you say you can pass as a woman because you are confident. So what you're saying is you've concealed this something that you might feel is discrediting, or other people, for that matter, might feel is discrediting. I'm not saying this is all you, Angela. And confidence can be very important there. If you believe you are discreditable, then you do need to figure out some way to develop that confidence to present yourself in whatever way. So thank you for that. That was beautiful. Charlotte asks, should we invest in graphene? I mean, graphene is Margie brings up that it's a fullerene. Actually, I did some research. I'm going to say this much. No, I don't think we should invest in graphene, but I did some research way back. I don't know, early 1990s. Siloxane? What the hell was that thing called? I think it was called siloxane. So the point was what was I using? Hydrofluoric acid? This is pretty much a terrible story because I don't even know what the hell I was doing. It's been a long time, folks. I have a paper. There's my name on a paper. You'd think I'd know this, but, well, there's somebody's name on a paper. It's my last name on a paper. Anyway, we were interested in fullerenes, and we said, well, could we do this same sort of thing with silicon? Could we make a silicon single sheet, like a graphene? The reason why is because silicon actually pretty easily becomes quantum confined. You didn't think you were going to get this crap in the show today, did you? Quantum confined. So if you have a piece of silicon, usually it will absorb about IR energy light, so low energy light. But if you confine it, that energy goes up because you have this thing that goes, I cannot have all of my particles in this box, so I need to spread out my band gap. Anyway, so that means that you could shine light on it and it would emit visible light. This was called porous silicon. And honestly, it was important about 30 years ago. Nobody's talking about it now, I doubt. I have no idea. So anyway, so I did do some work there. There you go. Margie, I think you told this story of the tape measure and the 37-inch long piece of steel. Because I think you were off by a couple of thousandths, I can't say it, thousandths of an inch. There we go. Where'd it go? Here we go. Got rid of it. CAPTCHAs. Oh my gosh. CAPTCHAs is predictive network security, everybody. Thank you, Ari. So there you go. Got 100% in your surveying course. Oh, that is pretty impressive. Here's an interesting tidbit, right? Or an interesting comment. So Angela says, we understand psychology because we've been analyzed to figure out if we're sane since we're transgender. I think there's a lot of truth to that. It's so crazy to me. I've got, how about if I just say people in the immediate family who are going to go, there's no use in going to a psychologist because you should be able to fix yourself. That is a stunning example of the Dunning-Kruger Effect. You don't have the competence to evaluate yourself and fix whatever it is you think is the problem. But they think they do. They go, well, of course I can fix myself. I've always been able to fix myself, and so there you go. It makes little sense. So there you go. All right, it's 2:42. I thought this was going to be a 20-minute kind of affair. I'm really sort of surprised it went this far. So finally, the last thing I want to talk about is just the ability or how to develop metacognition. Now, there's no doubt it is possible always to remain incompetent in any domain. Okay. It happens because of feedback. Ultimately, it's feedback. Maybe you never receive negative feedback. That could be personal, right? That could be you don't have the metrics, like I was mentioning with, with some arts and music. Maybe you don't have anybody competent to evaluate you. That could be personal. That could be, I don't want to say personal. It could be just sort of technical. It could be having to do with the technology around you. But it could be systemic. It could be like when I talked at the beginning about boys and the education gap. That right there is systemic. It comes down to a white patriarchy. So that's one thing. Maybe you never receive negative feedback because you just never get it. Maybe you don't know what caused the level of your performance. Good or bad. It doesn't make a difference if it's good or bad. This is, and maybe you remember this from other weeks ago, this is attributional ambiguity. I just like saying it. attributional ambiguity. What attribute about you, what is it about you that caused you to perform the way you did, whether it was positive or negative? And this obviously can be systemic, right? We talked about stigma. The reason why we talked about attributional ambiguity was because I was talking about stigma. And so people feel this stigma and go, well, what's wrong with me? I don't know what's good or bad. I don't know what's good or bad based on where, the social environment either. So those are two things. So you may never receive negative feedback. You may not even know what caused the level of performance. And so that feedback can't be used. And oftentimes, I'm sure you're going to guess this, it's metacognition. It's lack of competence, just to recap here, means being unable to evaluate your own competence and the competence of others. So no matter how much feedback you receive, you can't even use it. Right? If you say, "Oh, well, here's a fact about biology," and somebody goes, "Hey, you're wrong." You have no idea. You can't use that. This is what we need to be able to recognize. So I have a little bit of these are some thoughts here. Think about the domain in which you're trying to express some sort of performance. Here's a question, and you're going to go, really? Is this a domain in which you should have competence? Now this is sticky, right? This is the Dunning-Kruger effect. So let's pretend. Let's pretend at this point that you're able to do this quickly, okay? Because you can go, is this a domain I studied? Did I study Sumerian? What the hell did I say? Sumerian political elections, something like that. Is this a domain you studied? Is it a domain where competence is characterized by knowledge or wisdom? That's a good question. Is this a domain you should have competence in? If you do, are you forming your opinions from knowledge or wisdom? Or are you parroting a politician? So here I'm pulling the Dunning-Kruger effect out of this to say, if this is a domain in which you have competence, are you forming these opinions realistically? Or are you parroting a politician because it's more comfortable for, the cognitive dissonance in your head? That you're willing to give up your knowledge for the sake of a political opinion? Are you giving an opinion without sufficient knowledge? That's how you can judge your own performance and not be subject to the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's the real point. Ultimately, the Dunning-Kruger effect comes down to, do you possess the knowledge to say whatever the hell it is you're saying? If the answer is, I don't know, and of course you can't do that if you don't have the competence. If the answer is, I'm not sure, here's the point. Get a book. The answer is no. That's it. If you're not sure, you're wrong. Just assume you're wrong. So here's some practical advice. And I'm throwing this out here. I mean, there are a lot of people on the internet who just want to attack other people. That's kind of their whole deal. If you know somebody you know is incompetent, or if you're attacking somebody on social media, I don't care if you're doing a reaction video, whatever it is, if you're attacking somebody you know is incompetent, first of all, you better be damn well sure that you are competent. Otherwise, you're facing the Dunning-Kruger effect. That's the point of it. So stand by on that. You better be damn well sure that you are competent. If you are competent, don't bother attacking the incompetent. That's why almost a year ago, I had that live stream where I said, I'm trying to educate people who don't want to be educated. Don't bother attacking the incompetent. There's no value in it. You get no margin. Go educate people instead. Just educate them. If you can't educate the incompetent, that's fine. Educate people around the incompetent. Education will beat incompetence in the long term. Period. We have an executive order that says, that talks about, a definition of sex that is not, commensurate with what biology says. The next person who comes in may talk to an actual biologist, and the person will go, that's wrong, and that executive order goes away. Yes, it may take some years. I know it. Education will beat incompetence in the long term, period. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. Here it is with the Dunning-Kruger effect. If you're attacking somebody you know is incompetent, but you don't know, right, if you're competent yourself, if you can ask yourself, am I forming this opinion from knowledge? And you go, well, I don't know, or I'm not sure, you may as well stop. You are 100% wasting your time. You're wasting the time of your audience. Neither of your arguments comes from competence. So stop. Just stop. It is, again, much better to educate yourself. Get some education. Find somebody competent. It doesn't even have to be, you don't have to go to college or whatever. Get a book. It doesn't make a difference. But if you're making a statement and you go, I don't even know if I'm accurate when I'm attacking somebody else, go educate yourself instead. Because this is likely the Dunning-Kruger effect in action. It's important you learn to spot that. If you're attacking somebody, now here's the last one, right? So we went from if you know somebody is incompetent but you're competent, don't bother. Go educate yourself. If you're attacking somebody you know is incompetent but you don't know if you're competent, just stop. If you're attacking somebody you can reasonably guess is competent, did this person study the field? Do they have a degree in the field? If you're attacking them, you're probably in danger. If you're not coming from a knowledge of competence trained into you, you are smack in the middle of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Slide your ass right back down Mount Stupid, please. Don't do it. Pardon me. I do want to mention, too, a degree, and I was sort of saying this in the beginning, I don't think a degree means that the opinions you put out are accurate. I've seen biologists, molecular biologists who cannot define sex or gender. There's one thing I remember in particular. There was a guy, I'm not going to come up with his name, it was an Adam something, but he was on stage with some people and somebody says, well, what is a woman? And he goes, an adult human female. The crowd applauds. Woo! He dropped a soundbite. The people applaud and he moved on. He didn't finish any definition. What he did was actually muddy the water because now he has 3 different terms. Biologically, what does any of those terms mean? So anyway, just because you meet somebody who expresses an opinion that you like doesn't mean that it's accurate, even if they're intelligent people. So what does all of this mean? Here's my summing up. Sum up. Always question. Always question. Always, always. If you don't know, go find out. It's not that hard. There are libraries, there are ways to get knowledge that don't come from, like, Twitter. And if you don't want to find out, please, for the sake of all of us, close your mouth. It's going to be much easier. You can develop this metacognition. What metacognition ultimately means in terms of, who you are, your education, everything, it means becoming aware of your limitations. Nobody wants to become aware of limitations. It's painful. It's painful to go, I know the hell out of such and such and such, and then somebody goes, nope, wrong. And you go, oh, dang, really? Am I wrong? Learn from that pain. Yeah, it's painful. Learn from that pain because it will save you from being wrong. So there you go. That was all I had for today. Let me check comments here. Internalized transphobia is like a tumor. Isn't that true? Ouch. I still have that. I can't believe it. I'm almost 4 years into this whole thing, and Ari also brings up, religious anti-mental health family. How did you guess? Wow. Stunning. Yeah, it's really amazing. I love when you get somebody who goes, well, you should be able to fix everything on your own. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Actually, I need a valve job. Mom, do you want to come and do my valve job too? What point are you able to, at what point are you able to go, well, this I don't know, but this I can know? It's ridiculous. So So Muffin, I thought it was going to be a short stream. I thought I was going to be like dropping out of this really fast, but no. Excellent point. Ooh, where'd it go? Oh, here we go. Sorry. Excellent point from Angela. We only need the psychiatrist for the approval for bottom surgery. Yeah. As we know that we are sane and true to ourselves. This is one of the interesting points I think that really plays into insurance. The reason why I believe we have medical billing codes and all the things is because you have to prove that in some way you're in pain. And you need somebody else who's going to say, yeah, I have actually looked at this person, and sure enough, that person's in pain. That could be as much as, you get an x-ray because you broke your arm. They go, yep, that ought to hurt. It's a compound fracture. I would guess that hurts. Sometimes you really need that. Unfortunately, at least with gender-affirming care at this point, you have to get somebody who says that your greatest quality, which is to say your ability to express gender in a way that falls outside of gender norms, is a pathology, is something that needs to be fixed. So, all right, so Angela then goes on to say, we all get negative feedback as trans women, but we are strong enough to believe in ourselves. If we are true trans women, as well as a strong belief in ourselves. Yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared a little bit of the term true trans woman, because I've known some people who are like, well, that does, of course, you understand, mean surgery. And it was like, I don't think it does, but okay. And I don't think that's what you're saying, Angela, so. Oh gosh. Arguing with morons on the internet is like playing chess against a pigeon. No matter what, it's still going to shit on the board and strut around like it won. Yeah, so good. I love this. Look at this. So Muffin brings up, so Marcus Aurelius, first of all, look at you, reading Meditations, going and reading some Stoic philosophy. One of the things that Marcus Aurelius says is that you shouldn't say something if you aren't sure if what you're saying is true. Yeah, look at that. It's pretty sweet. Where is this? Yeah, lifelong learner. That's what it is. Never stop learning. Never close your mind. If someone tells you something, you need to analyze it as it could be wrong. Always. Here's the... I think this is hilarious. One thing Margie says a lot when arguing online is you have the collected knowledge of humanity at your fingertips, and instead of learning, you're choosing to use it to show your ass to the world. I think that's actually that's a self-contained description of X right now. There you go. I like this. Here we go. Indie Kitty says she's pretty smart, but not arrogant. I think that's the main point. I think intelligence is characterized by the ability of knowing those limitations. I think when you reach ignorance is the ability to perceive your limitations and go, fuck it. I'm not that concerned. I know I have limitations, but why should I bother with them? Who cares? Here we go. This is interesting. So, Blinded V9er, and I have not, so we haven't seen you before. So thank you for first of all, for attending, and then here's a comment. Blinded V9er says, they would think classifying people as competent or incompetent leads to an engagement with a presenter rather than the presented points. Not necessarily. I'm not saying that we should classify people. I'm not saying that when you look at a particular argument that you want to start with a classification. Because I believe, as I've mentioned, there are some domains in which that doesn't make sense. Artists, musicians, sports figures. There are places where it doesn't make sense. Then there are places where it does. I'm not saying you want to start from the point of who is competent and who is not. What I'm saying is you need to recognize when you are incompetent, when you do not have the ability to make some of the points that you're trying to. That could be an engagement with a presenter, assuming you were going to be it. So, I don't know if that addressed it. A blinded V9er. Like here, Matt, I think, makes a great point. The presenter does matter. A person who doesn't know physics, who's talking about physics, is very likely to be wrong. Yeah, it's very, very possible. And here you go. Because I don't know blinded, because Matt then brings up ad hominem attacks aren't fallacies. They are qualified as logical fallacies, but they're not fallacies. They're arguments that can be a fallacy if the criticism isn't relevant to the topic. There you go. Actually, that was well done. Because if you're a jerk, like you could very truly be a jerk. Thank you, Matt. That was beautiful. So blinded. I don't know if that answered what you were saying here. I'm not asking that we classify everybody. Although I will say that, especially when you look at something like gender affirming care, you do get people who want to classify all of us. You know, are you queer? Are you transgender? Are you gender diverse? Are you non-binary? Non-binary? Are you homosexual? Are you this? Are you that? By nature, we do a lot of classification. Period. And what I'm trying to say here, what I have said in all of this, is not that I want you to go out and classify other people, but I want you to be able to classify yourself. If you cannot classify yourself, then you really want to consider whether you should say whatever it is you're saying or not. And hopefully that made sense. Blinded V9er. If it didn't, there you go. I just realized I have things that came from another streaming platform and I had no idea. I hate that. All right, well, I'll put this here and now maybe I can see them. Oh, maybe I can't because they're still not coming up. Oh, well. Anyway, that was all I had for today. It's 3 o'clock. Let me see if. Oh, is it going to work? Maybe it's not. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a 5-minute break. I'm still trying to figure out if I want to do the game because I can already tell like my voice is a little bit meh. Maybe if it's okay just reading, just reading the thing as opposed to trying to do too many voices, we can do it because we haven't played in a long time. So, or we haven't done much in a long time. So, give me 5 minutes. We'll figure it out then, and I'll be back. Not in a like a Terminator kind of way, of course, but I will be back. Okay, I made it back. I hit the button, it didn't do anything. All right, here we go. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate this aspect. When I think of logical fallacies, anyway, I'm just going to run with this. I'm going to agree. So Matt says their only fallacies, ad hominem attacks, are fallacies when the criticism isn't relevant. I think a lot of times you use those things because they aren't relevant. And I guess I don't know. I'm trying to figure out when you would have an ad hominem attack that is relevant to whatever the argument is. I don't know. Anyway, there you go. But here we go. They're formally a defeasible argument. That's pretty good. All right, bye, Ari. Oh, here we go. Look, and Blinded just asked. So Matt says, an ad hominem attack. So unfortunately says that. Oh, here we go. So I don't. So Matt says this. This is an ad hominem attack. A non-physicist arguing with a physicist about physics is almost certainly wrong. All right. I don't know that we'd call that, because ad hominem implies attacking the man. I mean, I think that's what it. I think that was at the man. Maybe it's. So it has no relevance. Anyway, here we go. Hey, look, this is sort of a fun thing. This is where my mind went, which is why I just trailed off. See, Philosophical Arguments by Chuck Taylor. I love his shoes, too. Those are really great for breakdown of valid ad hominem attacks. So, oh my gosh, this went all places. So here we go. Anyway, so Matt says the fallacious form is a lot more common for sure. There are non-fallacious forms. So thank you so much. I will have to go and look this up. Thank you for doing that, or for putting that up there. So here we go. Oh, I see. So here we go, everybody. If you wanted this, the ad hominem in the attack would be, you're not a physicist, so why should we believe you? So it is actually attacking the person themselves. Good point. I like that. Anyway, in the 5 minutes that I was just sitting doing nothing, which I kind of didn't because I was just sitting right here in my chair, I don't think I'm up to playing a game. I'm glad I got this far, but I think I'm going to let it go. We will be back on Tuesday is the plan. I'm saying that like I might not. So I'll be back on Tuesday, and we'll do all kinds of other fun stuff, and then hopefully we'll actually get back into the game. But there we go. Thank you so much for all of your participation, for being here, for watching. Thank you very much. We will talk soon. Bye.